Welcome to the BudsnReality Show. I'm Sean Collins, the guy with a lot to say, and I'm here with my guest, Mr. Ben DeJong. How you doing, sir?
Doing good. I finally got to get this thing going. We kind of started a conversation at the Libertarian Convention a few weeks back, and by the time we got rolling, we had to move on to the next guest. So excited to kind of pick up where we left off and go from there.
Well, because the conversation that we were starting to have was great, and as soon as it started to get great, we're getting hey, it's time to go. You know what I mean? I'm like, hey, all right, cool, whatever. I didn't know what to expect. That was my first one ever. But, as far as like knowing you, obviously people from Michigan within the Libertarian Party are going to know who you are. But let's talk about you for a minute to get started, because not only are you involved with the Libertarian Party of Michigan, but you're also involved with Libertarian National.
So that actually just kind of fell in my lap. I just came across a position on LinkedIn, and it was for a media research assistant, and I was like, well, what's that? So I'm like, doesn't hurt to hit the apply button, and somebody reached out from the team and said, hey, we're just we need people to find articles for the media team to publish, because finding things to publish is half of the work, and these people are just getting burned out. I mean, the Libertarian Party is not big enough to have a lot of paid positions within the party. So again, most people are doing a full-time job, family, plus all the work that they're doing in the party. So I said, I'm already doing it for the podcast, I'm a kind of a media whore when it comes to just ingesting podcasts and YouTube, and like just listening and watching and reading a lot of like current events, and then obviously like tying stuff back to historical events. And so I'm like, well, I'm already doing it, so like it doesn't hurt to find some stuff for national and be able to help the media team out. So I mean, I've only been doing it for the last maybe 3 weeks. And so it's been fun. Just it's always nice to network sometimes like that, especially I've not been to a national convention, but I'm excited to go to this next one in DC, I believe, just because I've started making more and more connections in the party, and so to be able to meet them in person will be an added bonus and fun time.
Nice. Now, what is your actual position within the Libertarian Party of Michigan?
So Libertarian Party of Michigan, I am the District 2 representative on the Libertarian Executive Committee. So I kind of represent District 2, which is mostly or a big chunk of West Michigan. And then I obviously sit on the board and attend all the board meetings. And so I was elected for a 2-year stint at this last convention. And I'm really hoping to do a lot more work with trying to grow the numbers, the active members in the West Michigan side of things. There's so many colleges. The West Michigan traditionally, I think, had always been kind of the more conservative side of the state and kind of balanced out the Detroit side. And I swear now, with those colleges, with the woke campus, like you go to Grand Rapids and there's people walking down the sidewalks and with masks still, and it's become extremely liberal. So I'm really hoping to do some work with like Young Americans for Liberty and try to rejuvenate the spirit of rebellion, back into some of the colleges. Like, fuck the state, don't tell me what to do. Like, I want, like, that's what exactly that's what college is for, to rebel, to push back against authority. And the fact that we're turning out blue-haired woke babies, basically, who want the world to bow to their whims, is like, that's not the rebellion that where it's like championing the state, championing the mainstream media. It's like, no, you're not a rebel, you're not a rebel, you're a mouthpiece. And so hopefully we can start working and getting, because I know that there are teenagers and college kids out there that are like not okay with the way things are going, and they're probably concerned about being ostracized or being having their grades impacted, for speaking out. And so, we got to make being a rebellion or being a rebel cool again.
Absolutely. And that's something I've been my whole life. I used to literally tell my parents, I do whatever I want. Now, not to say I didn't get my ass beat for it, but I used to tell them that I was quite the rebel. Nobody was going to tell me what to do. And now I'm in my 40s and I still don't want nobody telling me what to do, except my parents aren't beating my ass anymore. But one of the things that you and I talked about at the Michigan Libertarian State Convention on that panel was censorship in media, which has been happening, but it's coming, and it's coming in droves. And I just went through something personally with iHeartRadio, where
Okay.
they took us down. They took me down. No rhyme or reason for it. They just kind of took us down. My wife, for some reason, just happened to look and see, if everything still. And she's like, iHeartRadio's not, showing you anymore. So what's that all about? Not to say that I had a whole bunch of people. Most of my people are Spotify and Apple.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I didn't even know iHeart had. Is it just a podcasting, or did they do video?
To be quite honest, I don't know. She does all this stuff.
Okay.
I'm a tech tard. I do this. I record the shows, and then it goes to her from there, and that's that. I'm not good with computers. But long story short, they said I was flagged for misinformation, but then they couldn't tell me what was misinformation. So there was a battle back and forth, and I was like, well, are you going to put me back up or not? Because you can't, tell me what I did wrong. And if you were to tell me what I did wrong, I might be able to have a rebuttal about this, that, or the other. They're like, no, we don't have anything. You were probably reported. And I was like, oh, great. People are reporting me now. Mind you, I'm so small time. Like, this show I'm still underground. I'm nobody in this world,
Well,
but
you're big enough to be censored, so you can pat yourself on the back for that one.
I guess. But long story short, they couldn't figure out what the misinformation was or tell me anything. So they put us back up for now, and hopefully whatever. But our conversation was great because we got into a lot of deep stuff, and it's not just about censorship with just libertarian influencers. It's censorship on right-wing influencers. And there's even censorship on left-wing influencers, depending on which, platform you're on.
Right.
And people like you and I don't believe in censorship at all.
Right. Good ideas trump bad ideas, but you've got to flush them out. And like, if you censor that just pushes bad ideas underground, it doesn't make them go away. And people don't, I don't know if they don't get that, or if they don't want to be bothered by even having to defend their point of view. It's hard to get into the mind of that kind of mentality of like, I don't like that, therefore I'm going to turn it off. Whether you're working at Facebook or Twitter or any of these, big companies, like, maybe it's just a power trip. Like, I don't know.
It could be a power trip, but it also could be, anybody speaking out against the status quo, and they're like, you're done. You know what I mean? And so this is what we have to deal with, but we have to find a way to pivot. And I have some ideas, you have some ideas. What would be your best idea to pivot in a situation where they just say, hey, we're shutting you down, period?
Yeah, and I can't remember. I think we touched on this. Something I had read that they were talking about, having an AI that was kind of underpinning the internet for the United States, that would automatically flag and delete what the government decides is misdis or whatever information they basically deem is wrong, inappropriate, or otherwise. And when I started looking into it, because I'm like, well, how are they going to do that? The discussion, or at least, and I think this was maybe a white paper or a thought experiment that was it's in DC, so it's definitely something that is being looked at. But it would basically automatically delete and or flag in information. So for example, tonight you go to post a podcast, and it it potentially won't even be able to hit, you know, your podcasting server or your website or, you know, Apple Podcasts. Like it would be flagged and or deleted even before. So it almost takes the media companies out of the mix. Like instead of them kind of patrolling speech, this AI would do it on, you know, on the back end. And to me, that was like, you know, alarm bells going off, because in a situation like that, you have no recourse. You can't, you know, call up customer service at Apple or iHeart and say, what's going on? Like it's just, you're gone. Your voice is gone. And so like me and a couple other friends who are, you know, in the podcasting libertarian world, were talking about it and going, well, yeah, how do you pivot in a world like that? And so one of the things we talked about is, you know, focusing more on entertainment, but being more looking at it from a libertarian perspective. So one of the ideas that we had talked about was like maybe doing like a movie review of John Wick 4, and breaking down like the use of, you know, violence and when it's appropriate, when it's not appropriate. When is it in, you know, was that in self-defense, or, you know, who was the bad guy in that situation? Like, so you could push a libertarian message while kind of disguised as a movie review. Or I'm a big history buff, so instead of like looking at, you know, something in today in the Ukraine, you know, look at a situation very similar, if not, you know, there's enough war in our past that you could almost find an exact replicant, and then talk about it in historical context, but basically almost narrating what is currently happening, but historical context. So still being able to send out a message, still being able to teach and inform, because I think we do a lot of that in this world, but doing it, yeah, having to be a little bit more crafty in how you deliver it. And, you know, that's something we had talked about. My biggest concern is it would require a lot more effort, because you can't, you know, if like I want to talk about gun violence or shooting that happened, you know, where I feel like it was in self-defense, or the, you know, the police were at fault, instead of having that and be able to just regurgitate that on a podcast, you would have to somehow disguise it in a movie, or, you know, it would put a lot more effort into developing the podcast than just being able to speak your mind.
Now, before I go forward with this, I need to put this out there. I'm very much against AI. I don't care for it at all. I get it. It's cool. You know, there's a draw to it, but I think it's very destructive, and I think it's very dangerous. And there's one video in particular that really, and I wish I could, I'll have to pull it up on my socials at some point and hopefully, you know, get it back up on there, because it's been a while since I saw it. But there was a video of Hillary Clinton endorsing Ron DeSantis as president.
That was AI generated.
That was AI generated, but it looks so fucking real, dude. It was so real. And the voice was real. The voice was real. The look was real. Unless you were really paying attention to the mouth, because the words in the mouth weren't kind of lining up, you wouldn't know any better. But just from looking at the video, you know, you're going, okay, well, two things are going to happen. Maybe 3 or 4 or 5. I don't know. I'm not a fucking mind reader or you know, an envisionist of the future. But I do know this, that the government can use that against their opponents for political gain, which they might be doing already. We don't know. You know, it was kind of crazy to see that, but just to see, you know, somebody from the extreme left to go to somebody from the extreme right. Yes, I just said that. DeSantis is pretty extreme right. Yeah, shoot me, whatever. I don't care. But anyways, you know, that's what they're going to do to rile up the crowd or to keep people pissed off, or, you know, whatever it may be. Or they're going to use it against people like us, but just the people in general, not just, whether it be podcast influencers, libertarian influencers, anybody outside of their left side box or right side box, because both sides could do it, if they really wanted to. But like, that could be a situation where they're going to use it as a weapon to keep their political gain, which is very scary to me. And this is why I'm very much against the AI. There's music artists that are very much against it because, like, for copyright and plagiarism and all that, you could, say you're just some techno DJ with the boo, 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 you know what I mean? You could have Eminem in the background singing whatever, but it's not really him. And so artists are actually pissed. They're
Well,
not.
I think that's part of the actor strike, is the fact that they are saying in a lot of their contracts, the studios are saying that they can use their image in perpetuity. So even when they die, like they did with Star Wars, bringing back, like a couple, deceased characters, but then that person or their estate receives no royalties for that. So it basically, you get paid for a film, and then they could do 3 sequels using your AI generated face and voice, and you wouldn't get a dime for it.
Yeah, see, that's not going to fly. That's not going to work. At the end of the day, we're all here to make some money and make a living. Not all of us are trying to get rich or something like that. But when the dust settles, like, you do a certain thing because you want to get compensated for it so you can move on in your life. That's why we go to work. That's why we do anything. I don't want to necessarily say that's why we podcast. We podcast to get a message out. If we happen to get paid for it, great. That's dandy. That's the ultimate dream, at least mine anyways, is to do this full time. But, one of the things I do think about when you said, like, the government would use AI to try to censor us, I'm not too sure they would go that route, just because, not to say that they wouldn't, they will do anything to do what they're going to do. But like, the government could just be like, okay, YouTube, you're not playing these people no more. Or Spotify, you're not playing these people anymore. Whether it be us or them or whoever, if it's anybody against the status quo, they could be like, okay, shut it down. And they'll probably follow suit because they don't want to get hit with, fines or whatever it may be. But you might be onto something too, that we don't know anything. This is all brand new.
Well, even the chat GPT that we have, that's probably like 3 or 4 generations old compared to what the Pentagon has. So, a lot of times when you talk tech, like by the time it hits the private sector,
oh yeah,
they've got something way bigger and way fancier, in that they've got, the toys in, their toy box. So
yes,
it's just, it's unfortunately, I think it's an inevitability, because it's going to be used as a means of control. It's going to be used as a means of censorship. But that's why I think it's good to have the conversations going. Like you have to almost play chess and say, all right, if they move this piece, what's my counter move? So you almost kind of have to play it out to make sure that you're not left behind. So, to be able to have a pivot, to be able to have, a means of, being able to get your message out. I mean, I think we talked about like pirate radio, like,
yes,
how cool would it be to bring back, like a AM station, get a powerful enough receiver that, you could, get the majority of the state. I mean, granted, there's ways that they'd probably try to censor you that way too if you got too big, but yeah, it will be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, there's whether we whether we get into CBDC. I mean, there's just a lot of means of control that are coming down the pike. And my white pill, I mean, not that it's pretty rare that I'm white pilled, but my only hope is that it really pushes the national divorce discussion, because good or bad, there are some governors who are going to say, fuck off. You're not doing that in my state. Um, DeSantis was one of them when it came to COVID. I mean, he's already, at least he's talked a big game about, making sure that CBDCs will never be accepted in Florida. I think Abbott's kind of a tool in Texas, but the Texas, at least the mindset of the majority of the people there are, no, we're not doing that. And so I think because we do have sovereign states, I mean, it's most of the time that's not a thing, but COVID did kind of push that narrative. And so there was some, I think, some good out of COVID. But if some of these other things come down the pike and Texas says, yeah, not doing it, they're already talking about starting their own gold backed currency. Um, that could be, the start. It only takes one state to say, fuck off, we're out. And you could start seeing dominoes fall pretty fast. And then we have a much better chance of getting freedom back. I mean, I don't know about Michigan, but so at least some states would have that chance.
Yeah, Michigan's pretty far gone at this point, and we've been taken over by, the communists, or you can call them progressives, whatever you want. Progressives or commies, say what you want, I don't care. But you kind of brought up the pirate radio thing, and that was actually a real deal, man. Like there was people fighting to, get radio stations just to play music on air.
That was like in the 70s or 60s, wasn't it? Because I think there was a couple of movies even about somebody who had it like a transceiver on a boat.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah,
Yes, but like if they could have pirate radio, why can't we have pirate internet? Now, this is where my tech tard comes in because I would have no idea how to do that. But there's got to be a way if they could, steal airwaves to put music on the air, there's got to be a way to steal internet to get a message out and to have a community that is involved in that.
yeah. I mean, there's the dark web, and they have means of kind of circumventing a lot of rules and requirements, but again, once a voice or once an opinion or once a message kind of crosses a threshold, then then they come for you. So and maybe that's the great thing with libertarians. Maybe we have 1,000 voices all saying the same thing, but only talking to our to the local. You keep it small that way, but the message itself is huge. So I think that would be a great way to have almost like a group of media influencers, media creators, all of that stuff, and to say, hey, we're going to all talk to our 1,000 followers, 2,000 followers, and this is what we're going to hammer this week because there's a vote coming down on X and we want to make sure everybody's informed on it. And then everybody's small enough, but again, that message is spread. So I there is hope. They can't squash us all, and not to mention what they're doing with the money and the levels of debt and de-dollarization. I mean, there's just so much shit that is slowly hitting the fan right now. Part of me, it's like it's beautiful because it's things are crumbling, but there's the other side of me is like what you don't really know with that level of chaos that could potentially occur. Like, are they going to be do you fully militarize the police and completely go full communist? I just you don't really know like what the responses would be if a state were to secede.
Right. And now when it comes to seceding, it's kind of funny to watch, Texas will be like, we're the first to secede. We'll be the first ones to do it, even though they proved that wrong when they had that big snowstorm on that and was begging for government assistance when they didn't have any fucking power. I was like, way to go, Abbott. Great. And then, Florida's going to be like, we're going to be the first to secede, but they always need federal help because of the hurricanes, and so whether New Hampshire is going to be the first to secede. If anybody's going to do it, it's going to be New Hampshire.
I think I saw something on Twitter. They posted a bill for secession, and I think they probably try this every year. And God bless them for trying, because that would be great. Again, I think it would just take one to bring it to a national discussion, and then I think the dominoes would fall.
Well, a lot of states, really can't secede, really.
If you're like in a middle state, you would need to kind of join, I envision almost like a loose federation of states.
Right.
Like if you're a Texas and you're a Florida, I mean, you've got ports, so it's easy for you to trade with other countries. But yeah, if you're Kansas and you're really kind of stuck in the middle of the states, going on your own would be much harder.
Yes. Yes. Now, one thing before we move on to this talk about all the censorship and stuff is one thing I learned, and I'm a Specs Howard graduate. I went to the Specs Howard School of Broadcast Arts. I think they changed the name to the Specs Howard School of Media Arts now because I do graphic design and stuff. But one thing I learned while I was there was that during times of war, anyone can start a radio station. I don't know if anybody pays attention to what the fuck's going on in the world right now, but I'm pretty sure the United States is involved in about at least a handful of wars. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty fucking sure I'm right on that. So, that being said, that could be another way for us to, try to get our voices out until we get shut down and have to do something else.
Right. Yeah. I think it's important to have these discussions to generate ideas for, if they put up a wall, then how do we have tools to break it down? Do we have to pivot? Again, it's playing 3D chess where, you almost have to anticipate the potential moves and then put together ideas. Well, if this happens, we're going to go this direction. So that's, I think, it's very important especially when it comes to free speech and censorship.
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of people are for free speech as long as it's for their side.
Oh, right.
But they don't understand that, like, hate speech is free speech. And people are like, well, you can't just let Nazis say whatever the fuck they want. Well, yes, you can. And you want them to. Because why not let the trash take itself out? Let them expose themselves for what they are and let them take themselves to the curb like the trash that they are.
Well,
Don't
it's even
silence them.
Well, like the bakery that bakery didn't want to, bake a cake for a gay wedding. Like the market takes care of that because, if they're surrounded by, or the bakery's in a very homosexual neighborhood, that's going to take care of itself. Or
Yes.
like that's the beauty of the market. It self corrects and it punishes bad speech and it rewards good. And it's just another downfall of the government because, in an attempt to prevent unfairness or whatever, it always makes it 1,000 times worse.
Yes, it sure does. And it's quite unfortunate, but this is the world we live in right now. I say it all the time on this show, make Orwell fiction. Again, this is 1984 as fuck. We're living it, man. And you see all the memes and people saying it wasn't supposed to be an instruction manual. And you're like, it kind of was apparently because it's working. Like it's flawless. What they're doing right now with the divide and conquer and the censorship of media and controlling the guns, this is very Orwellian, dude.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely chinks in the armor. I mean, I don't think, the powers that be expected Elon to buy up Twitter and kind of push back and show the dirty laundry. Like the Twitter files were a clear and obvious, like we all knew that was going on, but now we had proof. And part of me was just, it still blows me away the level of apathy in the United States about like clear violations of rights. There's just, we don't have any protests in the streets. And I don't know what it's going to take to get people out and get people riled up and people mad. Maybe it's if they try to push the draft again, because I know like military enrollments is like at its lowest point ever. Maybe that would cause people to say, like, no, you're not taking my son or my daughter. I just like the threshold of like what's allowable in the United States is just scary. And I think that's one thing with after COVID, like people like, lock me in my house. Like they were wanting that. And it's like gross. Like why do we share the same country with those type of people? And then again, that's where the national divorce discussion comes in. It's like you don't have to share one country with people who honestly want a North Korea style government. Like that is their, and it just, I'm like, how sick are you that is, your ideal state of living?
Right. And the whole thing, like, at the end of the day, I'm an anarchist or an capitalist, whatever you want to call it, um, but I'm in a mindset where like, and this is totally crazy because it goes with dividing, and I don't want to divide the people, but I don't think we're ever honestly gonna get to a common thread where we can at least agree to disagree.
Right. Yeah, the divide has accelerated to so fast in just the last 5 years.
And so I'm in a mindset where like, let's split America into two republics. And by that, I mean the people who want government and the people who don't. Now, I'm not saying the people who want Democrats and the people who are Republicans. No, you people can stay together. You people want the government. You let us anarchists and anarcho-capitalists or libertarians, whatever you want to call us, I lump us all into a big bubble because the ideas are very, very much the same. Little differences, but they're very much the same. Don't hurt people. Don't take their stuff. Property rights are everything. That's just kind of the way it goes. I can guarantee it. And I don't guarantee nothing. I always say I'm like 99.9% sure because nobody can ever be sure about this. I can guarantee you that the anarchist, anarcho-capitalist / libertarian society would flourish a lot more than a statist society run by Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah, and I think that was the dream of the founding fathers. That's what they had set up. These are multiple sovereign states that should be competing between each other for capital, for people, for resources, but like the best ideas win. And so that was the whole idea, is like, I mean, if Florida's doing something great, then Michigan can look over there and go, hey, that's working for them. I want those results. So that's what I'm going to do. And then states like California, they sink to the bottom and they fizzle out. Like that's federalism, is like competition at every level, even in government. And, that's been abandoned years and years ago. And it'd be great to return to that again. That would be almost a return to the original idea of the United States if we had a national divorce, because we'd still have to have trading partners. We'd still have to have, like we'd still have to get along. It would almost be like a European Union where, outside of the fact that we want to have our own currencies. And, the states that would be like, hey, we're not in the currency business. Can you imagine the flourishing that could happen in a state like that, where the government gets out of finance? That would just be awesome.
Get the fuck out of our monetary system and leave us alone. It is absolutely insane that we have a bank, an entity that is run by itself along with the government. They go hand in hand. I understand the government isn't the Federal Reserve, but they are BFFs, butt buddies, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, I just said butt buddies. I don't care. But here's the thing. you know, number one, there should be no government in the entire world that has an endless supply of money or access to it. That is dangerous as fuck.
We're seeing that.
We are seeing it right now. Mind you, oh yeah, by the way, guys, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but disclose.tv just posted yesterday on Malcolm. I'm going to call Twitter Malcolm now because it's now called X. It's not Twitter anymore. So it's now Malcolm. Malcolm X is my dude. You want to ruffle up some right wingers, just tell them Malcolm X was way better than Martin Luther King. I believe that. But anyways, God, I forgot what I was getting at after that. But, where was I
posting something on Twitter?
Oh, yeah. Disclose.tv discloses that the United States just sent like another $350 million in cash and weapons to fucking Taiwan. On top of the money, we just sent another $500 million to Ukraine. Now, let's get into the monetary system because you are just doing something very fucking cool that I want to talk about. What they're doing right now is on purpose. They're destroying the dollar on purpose. They know exactly what they're doing. They know that printing excess dollars is going to devalue it to a point to the point of no return, which is where we're at right now. There's banks shutting down. They can't, if everybody in America wanted to clear their bank account right now, they couldn't. They don't have the cash to back it up. They're destroying the monetary system on purpose to force a CBDC on us. This is why they're sending copious amounts of fucking money to Taiwan or Ukraine or wherever the hell else they're blowing up people all over the world, because that's what they do.
Well, and it's those in the know who are like, they know the end is coming with the current financial system. And so it's at this point, like, get as rich as you possibly can. And that's, the military contractors, the, government agencies, all like, it's all about like getting as much as you possibly can before it's worthless. And you're exactly right. They already have the solution to the problem they created, which is the CBDC and UBI. Something that I just did a video on was WorldCoin. And I think that like, that's already kind of a template for what CBDC is going to be. It's the promise of give us all of your information, all of your privacy, all of your rights, and in exchange, you'll get $2,000 a month. And then, but that $2,000 a month, it's going to be deposited in your FedNow wallet, and you can only use it for like food and rent. And even though those allowances, if you buy too much red meat, we'll turn that off. That's, again, that's what is that old saying? Like, the government is the person who comes and breaks your leg and then hands you a crutch and says, where's my thank you? Like, that's what they do. They cause the problem because they already have a solution that is going to make them even more powerful and take away more of your rights.
That's right. And in this very moment, I'm actually in the middle of reading a book by Carol Roth. I just picked it up last week called You Will Own Nothing. And it very much goes into detail about this stuff that we're talking about right now. But it also goes into detail about social credit scores, which will align with your CBDC. Okay. Right. And now hear me out. This isn't tinfoil hat shit. This is fucking happening right now. In China, they do the social credit scores right now, or the ESG, or whatever you want to call it. If you do anything or say anything off base, or what they consider off base, they will shut your fucking money down. They will shut you down to travel. You can't board trains. You can't board trains or planes. You can't do anything or go anywhere. That is what is coming to the United States. This is why they keep talking about social credit scores and ESGs, or I believe those are the same thing, but that goes with your CBDC. It all intertwines, and that's so scary right now. And at this point, if they're really going to roll this shit out, we need to be like this right now. Like this shirt says, stack up, rack up, let's fucking go, because it needs to be rejected. Could you imagine trying to go to the grocery store to buy food for your fucking children, your family, your wife, your husband, whatever it may be, and you can't provide for them because the government shut your shit down. Sorry, I get a little worked up about this shit because it's really, really important that people understand how fucked up this is.
Well, it basically all of a sudden it nationalizes everything. So it's a fascism's wet dream, because it's almost a fascism communist like fusion, because if your money, which is what you make when you work a job, that's the exchange. You provide labor, they provide cash, or what should be actually money. But if that money now is owned by the government, everybody's working for the government, because if they own all of the means of exchange, then you don't even own the fruits of your labor.
We already don't own the fruits of our labor. That's the most fucked up part. So, we just talked about this before we actually started recording the show. Like, the government takes half your pay already, and most will go, well, it's only 30 some odd percent. Well, do you pay property taxes? Do you pay a gas tax? Do you pay a food tax? You pay a take a shit tax. You have to pay for your fucking water and pay for the fucking toilet paper to wipe your ass.
All taxed.
It's all taxed. You're taxed when you fucking die. You pay a tax on your vehicle that you already pay a tax on every fucking year when you have to put tags on your car.
Yeah, and it would, again, like a CBDC just makes that 1,000 times easier, because in a lot of ways, people don't pay their tax, so they find loopholes to get around taxes.
Right.
But again, if they own the money, they see every dime you spend. Like, it's an open ledger for them to be like, nope, we're turning that off. Yep. Like, and that's where, like, having alternative means of transacting. So I'm a big gold bug, not a Bitcoin fan at all. Again, it's electronic, and if it's electronic, government can take it, government can abuse it. They all, there are a lot of people say, no, Bitcoin's, bulletproof. Let's look at history and see how many times that was used and the government took it over anyhow. So, but I'm a big fan of gold backs, and for those who don't know, it's a form of gold, but it's almost like a dollar bill, but it's actually gold leaf encased in plastic. So yeah, check them out at goldbacks.com. And it's a way of exchanging, whether you get paid in goldbacks, whether you buy a burger in goldbacks. It's off the books. It's not on, it's tangible. You can bury it in your backyard. You can, it's always going to be valuable, because gold can always be melted down and repurposed. It never dies. And it's, because again, I think as much as we want to push back against the CBDCs, and there's a lot of people that are pushing back. I don't have a lot of hope that we're going to be able to do it, because again, there is a majority of Americans who would welcome a credit score, and because then they could tattle on their neighbor, and because it makes them feel virtuous, and then they get to be able to, like, cry on social media because the neighbor has a Trump flag in their yard, and how dare I live in a country that allows that. And so they would be championing a social credit score or something where they can knock their neighbor down, so because of views that they don't like that's because we have that desire as a country. The government is just going to feed us what we want, and that's sick. But it's a cultural rot that is, I think we've moved past the point of no return.
Right. And with the CBDC, though, also, it's a way for them to track us. Like, they will literally know where you are at all times, because every time you swipe your little, whatever it is, your FedNow bullshit, they're going to know that you just bought beer at some party store in, Grand Rapids, Michigan, or you just bought some fucking porn in Toledo, Ohio, or they're going to know every move you make, every step you take. They will know everything, and they will have access to your money to shut it down if you do something that's, not up to their standards, and this is where we're at in the United States right now. And it's scary as fuck, and we sound like alarmists all the time, but this is alarming shit. Like, we're not just sounding alarming to be alarming. This is very alarming shit that is happening right now. Now, with the gold backs, though, I'm into it because it's not just a clever name. It is a paper money, or a plastic money, as you would say. But it's backed by gold. It's actually backed by something.
It is gold. Yeah.
It's not backed by a fucking printer at the Federal Reserve that could just, keep going and keep going and keep going and devaluing. This is something that holds value, that will stay true. And I've said this many times on the show before, like, when we were still under the gold standard as a country, the United States was not allowed to borrow beyond their means. Let me say this again. When we were still under the gold standard, the United States was not allowed to borrow beyond their means.
Outside of a type of war, I think. But even then, like, they would have to sell war bonds.
Yes.
Couldn't just, so it was a way for them to collect more money. Like, that was the tether. At least at that point, there was a tether to the printer. The printer could only print as much as they had in gold.
Yes.
And like that, the fact that they talk about, well, America always pays its bills, we've never defaulted. Hell yeah, we defaulted in 1971 or 72. Like, when Nixon said, no, your paper is now worthless. Like, before that time, you could take money and get it exchanged for gold. And like, when he severed that, that was a massive default. You no longer can get your money, because basically the dollar was kind of a promise that at any point in time you could redeem that in gold. So it was almost like a check, where the real money was actually in the bank. And once that was severed, like, yeah, you just, it's paper that you wipe your ass with.
And now that being said, we're talking about gold backs. You just had a meeting. Was it with a senator?
Yes. So I met with Angela Regas. She's a Republican from actually around here. I think she said she grew up in Hastings, which is, right around in my neighborhood. She's been kind of a friend of the Libertarian Party, especially when we've been protesting against some of the gun rights bills, and she's kind of made the connection. So a few people in the Libertarian Executive Committee actually had her direct cell phone number. So I reached out to her directly and said, hey, I'd love to get a sponsor for a bill that I'm writing with a couple other libertarians. Would you be interested? And she was like, hell yeah. So I met with her 2 weeks ago, and she's 100% on board. She's got a couple other people that she thinks would co-sponsor the bill. So the draft that I and a few others kind of put together is going to go kind of to the legal team to put in the right format for the Michigan legislature. And then once they're allowed to actually bring it to the floor. So she said that they are not allowing any more bills to be brought to the floor for the rest of the year. And I was like, part of me was like, well, that's good. That means the government's kind of ground to a halt. But at the same time, I think it's basically allows Whitmer carte blanche to, do whatever she wants outside of, the Senate and the House.
That's what it sounds like to me when you said that. I'm like, shit, man.
Yeah, it's like, originally I was like, oh, the government's ground to a halt. I'm like, nah, that's probably not the case. Otherwise they would never have done that. So she's gonna hopefully introduce it on the floor of the state Senate. Is it Senate or the House? I can't remember. But early next year. So basically, the bill would eliminate sales tax on precious metals. So right now, what prevents us from using precious metal as a means of exchange is you would have to pay sales tax on the gold itself, because it's viewed as a commodity. So this would eliminate that tax. And with, Lansing being majority Democrat these days, it's going to be a heavy lift, because they're not about, reducing taxes. And there is probably the misconception that like this is just for the people who own gold and they just want to get rich, and it's not for the rich. It's actually for the poor to be able to use gold as a medium of exchange, not just poor, but like anybody and everybody. So it's something I'm passionate about, excited to even just to be a part of the process of like, how does things get introduced? Obviously it's great to be able to, make connections with people who are in the state House and Senate. So we'll see. Like I said, it's a heavy lift. Actually, goldbacks. So once the kind of these conditions are met with allowing gold and silver to be used as a medium exchange, goldbacks actually will print a run for your state. So they have, I think 4 states so far. Utah,
I know 2 of them are Utah and New Hampshire.
New Hampshire, South Dakota they just printed a set for South Dakota, and is it Wyoming? There's one other state I'm missing.
That probably is one of them, I would imagine, just because they're more of the free states per se.
Yeah, so it's definitely spreading. With inflation kind of going, being a little bit tampered down, it's probably not as front and center. But again, once this recession hits and they turn the money printer back on, I think it's recession. The inflation's going to be back in the news, and there's going to be pressure at the state level to like do something about it. And the only way to do something about it, again, the U.S. Constitution recognizes gold and silver as legal tender. So we have that in our founding documents, which really allows for, again, the use of things like goldbacks to get around potential CBDCs. Because again, I mean, unless they do a constitutional amendment to remove that verbiage, saying that gold and silver is legal tender, I don't know how they're going to deny that even for states who adopt CBDCs, because it's in the founding documents. Granted, so is free speech, and we've seen the shit they've taken on that. So I don't know. It's again, like, we know we have a good idea of what's coming. And so to have systems in place to get around the control and the censorship, I think that's what we need to put our time and effort into.
Absolutely. I feel like, I'm a firm believer that we need to not only have a national divorce, but we need a divorce from the fiat currency that we currently have. And, a lot of people say, end the Fed. No, burn that bitch to the fucking ground, dude. Because not only that the government shouldn't have an endless supply of money, there should be no one entity that's never been audited in the history of its opening over 100 years ago to where they are in charge of interest rates. They are in charge of inflation. They are in charge of our lives. People don't understand, when the people who are in charge of the monetary system are in charge of everything. And that's not supposed to be how this shit works. I'll put you up on some good literature right now. Read The Theory of Money and Credit by Ludwig von Mises. Read that book, and you will.
The creature from Jekyll Island, like,
Yes.
That's another. I mean, it reads like a dystopian nightmare or some science fiction, but it's all true. And it was a mind fuck for me. I just remember going, this can't be possible. But then you do some research and you're like, hell yeah, it all happened. It's crazy.
I literally just ordered my own tangible copy of it. Finally, I found one, because I'm a big book nerd. I found it on thriftbooks.com, actually, who I prefer to buy my books from, just because they're an independent book seller. The only thing that sucks is it takes quite a while to get your stuff. But if I don't have to, if I get the opportunity to not give Bezos money, I'm cool with that. I'd rather, support the independent guy as long as I can wait for my books, but yeah, finally get my copy of that. But, people don't realize who even started the Fed. And that was, the Rothschilds, JP Morgan, and a congressman. It was a recipe for disaster right off the rip. I mean, nobody gets it. But I mean, this is who started the Federal Reserve,
And it was all based on the Bank of England. Like there was it Hamilton that was a big proponent of, wanting to have a federal bank to be able to expand the government. And, there was thankfully people like Jefferson and that said absolutely not. And we've had national banks that have come and failed. And it's just like, what was it, 1911 when the Federal Reserve Act was passed, along with the,
13.
federal 13, yeah, federal income tax at the same time, obviously, because they had to pay for it. Um, and then we had the Great Depression, what, not even 10 years later, and that's
Yes.
literally what they claimed the need for having a central bank was, to prevent wild swings in the financial sector. And like, did they repeal it and go, well, you guys failed, so we're going to take our money back? No, they doubled down.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, not only did that happen, but all of a sudden this little war popped up right after the Federal Reserve too. I think a couple of us might have heard of it, the World War One. Is that it? I think that's it, and we've been at war ever since. And
Yeah.
that I tell people all the time, like, if you end the Fed, you end the wars and you end the empire. Not to say that the wars wouldn't be over. I mean, there's going to be tribalist, and gang type wars and shit like that always. That's never going away. This shit's biblical if you're God fearing man or woman, but
We wouldn't have to be worrying about a nuclear holocaust today.
no, no. And the fact of the matter is that, we've been at war since the birth of the Federal Reserve. 2 + 2 = 4. I mean, it's simple math,
Yeah, it's not a coincidence.
and here we are. And at this point in time, like, the United States is pushing for war so bad right now everywhere, so they can get that Fed to print, because they're desperate. They are desperate. They know the monetary system is going down. And I think they believe and they know in their hearts that if they really do, once the CBDC comes to play, there's going to be some serious unrest in this country. What's up?
Well,
I know you're listening.
yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's not a bug, it's a feature. Like they know that they would not be able to introduce a CBDC when things are going great. They need things falling apart. They need people crying out for government to save them. And that's when you take away freedom. I mean, it happens all the time. And just look at our history. And what was it, Benjamin Franklin? Like, those who would trade in freedom for security deserve neither, something like that. Like, again, so prophetic, because look at where we are today. And I mean, our founders did everything they possibly could to try to prevent what's where we are today. But it's just amazing, the human propensity to avoid responsibility is something I don't think, like, the anarchist circles talk about enough, because there's just this human nature to give up your rights for security, and or just so you don't have to take responsibility. Because if it's, that's what the Congress now does, is like gave, basically budgeting and war to the president, because then they can say when shit goes bad, well, it's the president's fault. It's like, you assholes gave away that power to the president. But it's just this, like, you just running away from responsibility and always having somebody else to blame so you don't look bad. And it always leads to tyranny. It just, because the power slowly gets centered, and that center becomes more and more authoritarian, and you end up in a dictatorship. Just look at Weimar Germany.
I mean, just look at history in general. I mean, look at what Hitler did. Look what Stalin did. Look what Mao did. Look what Castro did. And it all started the same way. It was nitpicking little bits of liberties and freedoms until they could do what they needed to do. And even with controlling the media and controlling, free speech and taking guns. This is where it all starts. And people don't know how deep this is. Like, please, for the love of God, read some history books. This is how they did it. There's a little bit of liberty here, a little bit of freedom there, a little bit of this. Oh, just give us your guns. We'll take care of you. Everything's going to be fine.
And then all of a sudden you get the Patriot Act. I mean, it's like a lot of times liberty dies slowly and then really fast. They say that even in the financial system, when things start falling apart, it always starts slowly. Everything's just like boiling a frog, and then all of a sudden it just crashes. And I think again, it's the fact that there is a majority of Americans who are welcoming it, who want to be locked in their homes, who want full government control. And that's where I'm black pilled the most, is we don't have a populace that is American anymore. Like American ideas was like liberty or death.
Yes.
Like that's maybe 25%, 30% of America these days. The rest are like, no, just make sure that they call me by my preferred pronouns, and give me a guaranteed job or a guaranteed check, because I'm a victim of something, like therefore I deserve to be paid for that. Like
I'm a
that's
400-pound feminist with blue hair, and I deserve the world because of it.
right. Yeah, I just saw a TikTok, I think, where some a transsexual had a job, and but he just couldn't go to work, couldn't show up to work on time because his boss just didn't understand what it was like and all of the abuse that he was facing as a trans person. Therefore, he was justified not going to work, and then his boss fired him, and that was that's racism. And it's like, that's unfortunately, I think, very prevalent, like, mindset in a lot of young people. It's sick. It's a sickness, and I don't know what's going to turn things around. I think, if things get as bad as they could, where people don't know where the next meal is, all of a sudden your pronouns don't really matter as much as, whether you're going to eat today.
Yeah, at that point, it's stack up or fuck off. When people are starving and looking for something to eat and they don't know how they're going to get their next meal, that's when you're going to really, understand why you need fucking guns so bad, because people will lose their minds. Desperate people do desperate shit. But along with what you were just saying, I say this all the time. It's like, we live in a world of followers. Nobody wants to lead anymore, to where, like, you and I are both Gen Xers. It wasn't cool to be a follower. You didn't want to be a follower. That wasn't what you wanted to do. You got shunned from, your peers for being a follower. You always wanted to be the leader of the pack.
Brown nosing was like, that was one of the worst put downs. Like,
yes.
Stop being a brown noser.
And now we're these kids, these young people, nobody wants to lead. They just want to follow. And we have this in our own government right now. Nobody is leading the pack right now. No one. Everybody is just following suit, and there's people will be like, well, some Republicans are doing this or that or the other, and vice versa. But I'm like, at the end of the day, they all shake hands and do backdoor deals and agree on some bipartisan bullshit that fucks everyone. And yes, I just said that. Anything that is bipartisan that they do, you might as well just bend over and take it with no lube.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When the government gets along, be prepared to be screwed, because that's the last thing we want. And that's, again, it was set up purposefully not to move very fast, not to, move in any one direction. Like, there was checks and balances that were put in there for a reason, to prevent government from doing much. And when a government is doing a lot, you're going to get screwed.
And when do people stand up? Because even I guarantee you, even leftists are like, what the fuck, when it comes to getting their money extorted from them for taxes. They'll say, hey, we want all this free shit, but wait a minute, why are we paying this, and this? And it goes across the board. But we need leaders. We need people who want to take charge and grab the bull by the fucking horns and say, we're doing it like this, whether you like it or not. And if you don't like it, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, you can't be afraid to ruffle some feathers and piss people off. Because and I think even from a political perspective, I think Trump actually showed that you can actually grow in popularity by pissing people off. And I think that was unheard of in politics. It was like never come down on any side, because you don't want to upset anyone. So you're, middle of the road on everything. You say yes to everybody. And that was the idea of like, how do you get reelected? Well, you want as many votes as possible, so you say yes to as many people as possible. And I think Trump was like, I mean, in his dumb, bullish, 2-year-old manner, like he said no, and he said, I'm not afraid to piss people off, and he called out reporters, and like and he gained in popularity. And I think that blew a lot of people's minds, especially in the media, going, this isn't supposed to happen, you're not supposed to be able to do this. And that's what I loved more about Trump than anything else, is he showed what a fucking sick system we have and how broken and corrupt it is. He didn't do anything, but at least he's shown a light on it.
But I mean, he said all those things and exposed it, yes. But then he also played their game. Like, his big thing was, I never started any wars while I was in office, but you damn sure escalated them because a bunch of fucking neocons got up your ass. It was like, no, we need to go fuck up Syria and go back to Afghanistan or do this, that, or the other in Iraq. And he's like, okay, let's fucking do it. You know?
Yeah,
So
his ego is so susceptible to ass kissing. And you saw like John Brennan. I mean, who else was like, like kissing his ass, and as soon as he was out of office, they're trashing him. And it's like the fact that he didn't see that because his ego got in the way, like yeah, you never hear him apologize for keeping Fauci through the pandemic. Like, dude, that's on you.
right. Or who brought in Operation Warp Speed, or who, hey, take the guns first, then due process. Who said that? It certainly wasn't Joe Biden.
Yeah,
Uh,
red flag laws.
let's see what else he did. He escalated wars. Oh, he printed $7 trillion, and most of his supporters will be like, well, COVID. Well, what about COVID? We should have never shut down in the first place. There should have been never no 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Yeah, and if you were a state that was dumb enough to shut down, you should have suffered the consequences. There, I mean, that was a federal bailout for bad leadership and management at the state level. Like California would have like had collapsed by now. I mean, granted, they're almost there. I just saw some videos of San Francisco, and I don't think there's many businesses even left there.
No, they're
And
pulling out. San
yeah,
Francisco is a shithole.
yeah,
Same
it's
with LA.
yeah, and these are liberal paradises, really. you know so anytime I granted, I don't get into very many arguments anymore with liberals, but it's like, here's your roadmap. This is your paradise. Look at it. Go move there. That's what you want. Like, that's the end goal of all of your policies. You have it. It's proven. It's right there. Like, it's I don't know. It's going to be an interesting next couple years, that's for sure. It's just, I swear, every day I just look at the news going, all right, what's going on today? Is there another virus? Are we doing lockdowns again? Is there World War III? Is nuclear holocaust? Did we have a financial collapse? What bank just collapsed next? Like,
There's nothing, you read any type of news article, even, outside of the mainstream media, it's like black pill, black pill, black pill, black pill, black pill, and I say this a lot also, like, I wish I could just come on this show and be like, hey man, these people are doing the right things. They're making the right decisions. They're cutting taxes. They're fixing the money, but it's never that. Oh, there's no war. We're pulling our troops out of here. No, it's the total and complete opposite of that. And it's like, man, and it's hard, to be honest, to do stuff like this is hard because you're not only blackpilling, the people listening, but you're blackpilling yourself. and you're scrambling, you're going, what the fuck do I do next? And I got, my wife, and I got to take care of her, and I got to take care of me. And what about my parents? Who's going to take care of them when the monetary system goes awry and all their savings is gone? There's going to come a point where people like us are going to take care of our parents. There's not going to be a choice.
Yeah, Social Security won't be there. I mean, there's Medicaid, Medicare will be, who knows? I mean, I work in the healthcare industry, and it is so government regulated, it might as well have been nationalized. But again, it's fascism, because it's insurance companies and government that have partnered to provide care. And that's fascism. I mean, just like, education, it's colleges and government to provide education. It's fascism. Banking industry, it's government and the Federal Reserve. Fascism. Like we live in a fascist society, and people they think Nazism when you hear fascism, and that's nothing. Nazism is an ideology. Fascism is a type of government structure, and that's what we have in the United States. We are 100% fascist.
And it's great to listen to Republicans call Democrats fascists and Democrats call Republicans fascists, because they're both right.
Yeah.
They're both
rarely
right.
do you get truth out of DC, but when they start calling each other fascists, it's like, oh, you are speaking the truth.
Yeah, all right. But what about your team, dude? You're just as fascist too, but you're not going to tell your side that, you know what I mean? But Ben, my man, let's before we close out, let's talk about your revamped pod. You had a pod and then you shut it down and you brought it back to life. So let's talk about that before we
Yeah,
go.
so I was one half of the podcast We Love the State. We're kind of still working with Andy Coons on some other projects when it comes to media. We've got a short film coming out. We're hopefully going to do principal photography later on this year. So looking at more media projects, and so I just got used to, being on a pod. So I'm like, I've got all of this information that I'm absorbing. And like, it's great that I'm able to, dish some of that out to the National Libertarian Party so they can do stuff with it. But so I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to go on my own. So I started a podcast. It's called The State 180. And so I've got a couple short episodes up so far, and excited to, continue to inform and hopefully some entertainment. So yeah, you can check out The State 180 pretty much any podcasting genre, and then I'm also publishing all the video over to Rumble. I'm like, at some point I may do some clips for YouTube, but I don't want to deal with it. And so I'm like, why even put the foot in that pond if you're going to get kicked out or bit later down the road?
Is that the only place you're available, is on Rumble?
For video.
Okay. Are you on what else are you on, just so people know?
So I also have the State 180. I've got it. There's a Facebook group, and then I also have a Instagram channel where most of it's memes, but usually pretty relevant. And then I'm also on Twitter, or X, Malcolm as we'll call it. You can find me on that. My Twitter handle is Picture This 1979.
Awesome, man. Well, Ben, thank you for your time. I'm glad we got to do this for real without somebody going, hey,
yep, time's up.
We done, time to go. You know what I mean? But we'll have to do this again. And I like what you're doing. I'm glad you were introducing goldbacks to our state. Hopefully it goes somewhere. Don't let them give up on you, because they will try. Be up their ass, because that's a big deal. We need another form of money, not currency. That's a big thing. There's a difference between money and currency. Right. And that's one thing, people don't understand. Currency can be counterfeited. Money cannot be.
Currency is a medium of exchange, but money is also a store of value. And that's the difference, is money actually has value it's attached to. It's not just paper, or it's not just ones and zeros. It's actual value.
Yes. And then to wrap it up, let's give a shout out to my man, the Infinite Zeal Syndicate, who helps pay the bills on this show. Thank you, sir. Get at him on Twitter at _infinite zeal. He has a bunch of cool merch like this hat, his hoodies. He's got shirts. He's the coolest dude on the planet when it comes to socials. He's the coolest dude anyways, but like he's probably the nicest guy on social media you ever meet, and has a great message and makes bomb ass memes. You know, get at him, check his stuff out. Everybody loves his hat. He's got shirts to match. Get at him. And until next time, thank you, Ben. Peace, love, and liberty, y'all. Be good.